What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Your boy Devin Coates, another edition. 48 Days with the 48 Laws, Day 35, Law 35. Master the art of timing, judgment. Never seem to be in a hurry. Hurrying betrays a lack of control over yourself and over time. Always seem patient as if you know that everything will come to you eventually. Become a detective of the right moments. Sniff out the spirits of the time, the trends that will carry you to power. Learn to stand back when the time is not yet ripe and to strike fiercely when it has reached fruition. So, all about timing. So, he actually goes through one of my favorite characters throughout the book, and both of them I love when I kind of reread it and see where they fall in, because I actually didn't know that much about history before reading Robert Greene, but Fouché and Talleyrand are like my favorite guys throughout the book. But it's hard to explain unless you really know the history. But basically, France went through a very tumultuous time where basically it just kept swinging from one side, one party coming into power. It's like so many overthrows. There's like 4 or 5 or 6 different overthrows, and with each overthrow, the opposing party or parties would just start getting beheaded. Like, you just started dying. So Fouché was through this, and he was basically on the side many times of the power that was in power, got overthrown and then everybody's getting beheaded. And what he was able to do was really sniff out when these times were coming, and then he wouldn't pick any sides. And that goes back to, I believe, Law 20 or Law 21. Never get attached to a side, something like that. But basically, he would be able to switch in and out of the different parties that he'd be affiliated with and kind of dodge getting beheaded. And he did it time and time again. He always knew what the spirit of the times were, and he was able to maneuver himself in a way that kept him protected while so many others were killed. Louis the 16th, Napoleon. Napoleon was exiled, but Robespierre, there was like so many people that were killed, and he was on the chopping block many times and eluded death with his strategic ability to master timing. He would wait when he was not on a good side, keep a low profile, wait for his affiliation to pick up speed and to rise to power. He would move if he thought one power was going to be canned. He would jump to another side and kind of keep it. And he was the only one that really remained throughout all of these different situations. He was the only one that really remained as to keep his post, no matter who was the leader, and he was able to survive. But the keys to this are really just how time is one fake. Like, it's something that we've constructed to kind of make it easier for us to understand the day. But there's a good story that was talking about, and there's 3 concepts of time. So there's long time, forced time, and then end time. And I believe in the forced time category, the long time category. So for long time, you want to plan a long time game. And then there's this story about this Chinese guy, Chu Young, and basically him and this little boy, they need to make it through like a forest to a city gate in a few hours, basically before sundown. It's back in the day, so if the sun goes down, you can just get raided by bandits, and there's not really like a force to come like protect you. So basically, he asked the boatman, he said, "You think we can make it?" And the boatman's like, "Yeah, if you don't walk too fast." He didn't really understand what he had. So they have these important papers, they're binded together, and they're walking through the forest. And then they see that the sun's starting to go down, so they get nervous and start hurrying, start walking fast, and they start breaking out in a run. And then all the papers fly everywhere. And then now they have to gather all the papers. It takes many, many, many minutes, and they actually make it to the gate not in time. So this was an example of not moving with the long time. And the idea with long time is, when you think about long-term goals and little battles that you kind of get pressed into that really have nothing to do with your long-term goals, that is an example of long-term time. So One big one that Grant Cardone uses, I like to listen to him for my financial advice, is before you make any investments outside of yourself, have $100,000 in the bank. And that forces you to play the long time game, because if you are getting wrapped up in the little things that pop up in the interim, you're going to end up being put in a position where you kind of like fuck yourself and you can't really actually execute on your plan. So the next one was forced time. This one is something that can be used either quickly or slowly. So one, for example, would be in terms of quickly, in the profession that I'm in, sales. Many times I will put incentives, especially with indecisive buyers, incentives for them to act now. So, it'll be cheaper if you can get me the PO by this date, because I don't want them to keep waiting. So I'm trying to force time. I'm trying to disrupt the timing they have in their head in terms of their inability to make a quick decision, and try to make them make the decision quicker and get the process rolling. So that's an example of forcing time with speed. Now you can also do it the other way. You can extend time. You can prolong time. So this can be an example of in basketball. I'll use wrestling too, because that's my favorite sport, but I'll use basketball. It's more universal. So in basketball or in football too, running out the clock. That is an example of making your opponent wait and using that to force time. So if you're winning a basketball game or a football game, maybe you want to extend the clock, run the clock out, so that they're forced to do everything in a smaller amount of time, or you start frustrating them. Or Floyd Mayweather, when he boxes, what he would do is the first couple rounds, you're popping off, you're doing all well with the high energy, he kind of learns what you're doing. Then he starts ducking, he's ducking you. And now you're getting frustrated, now you're getting wild, and he's using time and making you wait to knock you off your game. And then he starts hitting you with these good strikes. In wrestling, one thing I really hated was, I was very good at shooting and being on my feet, is when there's a style of wrestling that's very defensive, that like when you grab their leg, I didn't really mind funk, and if you're rolling around, because I was good at scrambling. But if I like grab their leg, and then there are usually like very long guys would do this, you grab a leg or you get them in a good position, and then all they do is they just lock, they just grab you and just basically put in a position where nobody can move for the time being. And then they would sit there, and occasionally I would end up on top. A lot of times it would just end up as a stalemate and we get back up, and I wasted a lot of energy and it demoralizes me mentally. But in the best case for them and the worst case for me, what would happen is they would keep me there, and they would almost lull me to sleep, or hold me in a position where it's taking a lot of energy for me to stay in a good position there. And it's like, you got to imagine there's somebody laying on top of me when this is happening, and they're holding me tight, and it's hard for me to breathe, and then it's hard for me to hold on. But if I let go, they're going to be able to spin around and score the points. So they kind of try to slowly move themselves instead of moving really fast. They're forcing the time. I was trying to force the time to close the distance, take them down, and then they try to force their time. Let's slow it down. Let me lock you up. Let me hold you here for a long time, and then slowly I'm going to try to wiggle out on top. So that is another example of forced time. The last one, the most important, is end time. Ending is everything. Nothing matters if you don't fucking accomplish your ending. So that's the importance of end time, is that, and that's basically all, really what it's about. It's like you need to end things correctly. So plan to the end, make sure your ending is good, and make sure above all else that you end it perfectly, because nothing's worse than starting a plan that you kind of get going, and then the end result that you're trying to reach, you never reach it. It never happens because you didn't execute on the ending well, and that would ruin everything else. There's no real reversal to this law. You need to master time, and feeling like you're out of control with time and you're not in control of time is a poor reflection of yourself. And it's really something that, I mean, it's one of those things that's like, you can't, it's almost like ingraspable, intangible. Think about it in sports a lot, like clutchness, for example. It's great to score a touchdown, but scoring a touchdown on a fourth quarter winning drive and being able to deliver your strikes then is way different in football, for those that aren't American, in American football, that is being able to really master timing. To being able to throw a very powerful punch is important, but in UFC, Conor McGregor has mastered his left hand punch is so lightning fast, so accurate, and so on time. Same with Floyd Mayweather, his punches and his dodges are so on time that they have in like enormous effect, a fucking magnificent type of power, and that's really the power of timing. When you do things at the correct time, it really has a better effect, and that is something that you need to master in terms of the game of power. So that's it for this one. Pick up your copy, link in the description below. Until next time, it's your boy. Peace.